So it's possible the best thing to happen for the Pittsburgh Steelers in this offseason, this wild offseason of drama and change, here as we now turn the calendar to a new year, 2019, is a move that won't have to happen and a loss that won't be. Mike Munchak was getting interviewed and sparking interest in almost every available position around the National Football League. Every team that had an opening for a head coach was interested in him. He actually interviewed with the Denver Broncos. And now reports are that he's going to actually stay with the Pittsburgh Steelers. Didn't get that job. Didn't get any other jobs, even the ones he didn't really seemingly want. And he's going to be back. And that's fantastic for the Pittsburgh Steelers. I don't know about him, but that's maybe the best move the Steelers could make, and the best piece of news for their offseason is if Mike Munchak actually returns to the Pittsburgh Steelers and stays a member of the Pittsburgh Steelers. This is another episode of Mic Drop here on Pittsburgh Sports Live, coming at you from the Beaver County Auto Studios up above Market Square here in downtown Pittsburgh. I am Mike Asti, and there's the graphic there. Follow me at MikeAsti11 on Twitter, and bring your trolling at your own risk. I might bite back. But Mike Munchak getting a head coaching opportunity or just getting a promotion of some kind somewhere appeared to be the one slam dunk move that was guaranteed to happen this offseason, and almost happened last year, actually. But Mike Munchak coming back and not leaving could really, really help the Steelers in the future, or at least for next year, because they want a quick turnaround. This is a team that disappointed and didn't make the playoffs with all that talent. And Mike Munchak could actually still be a part of the fix. Not many of the assistant coaches could be a part of the fix, but his offensive line played really, really well this year. Able to protect for Le'Veon Bell in the past, but protect for James Conner this year without Le'Veon Bell. Protecting for Samuels when he was put in there. The running game was spotty at times. I know the running backs coach was fired, and James Saxon. You see it there. James Saxon let go by the Pittsburgh Steelers. But Mike Munchak did a wonderful job. Mike Munchak's not the problem. So I imagine Mike Munchak's not going to stick around forever, and eventually you will lose him to getting a head coach opportunity or getting some opportunity somewhere. He'll just eventually leave to better himself individually, which you thought would happen this year. But if the Steelers could keep him and bring some continuity, bring some facet of success from that team from 2018, even though it was a season of so much drama and disappointment, and so many bad losses that shouldn't have been in those games that really cost them the year, that actually would be great news for the Steelers. Keeping Mike Munchak at least for one more year in 2019 would be great news for the Steelers. It appears he's not going anywhere. The reports are that Mike Munchak now will be back with the Steelers. Doesn't want the Dolphins job. Didn't get the Broncos job. He's picking his spots, which is probably wise because look at Hugh Jackson taking opportunities. Jeff Fisher made a career of this, taking every opportunity that came around and just continuously underachieved, continuously didn't have success, continuously didn't make the playoffs. All those years under 500. End up with a pretty overrated career and a rant I could do for another day. But you don't get always many opportunities to be a head coach in the National Football League. So when you do, you want to make sure it's the right fit, the right opportunity, and you almost guarantee success. That's what Mike Munchak's doing. And that's led him to now. There it is, SteelersNow.com. Mike Munchak likely to stay with Steelers. Mike Munchak likely to stay in Pittsburgh, at least for one more year, I'd imagine. I don't know if it's forever. I don't know if it's long-term until a better opportunity eventually comes, but it appears. Didn't want the Dolphins job, not going to get the Broncos job. Broncos job was probably the best one that he wanted, at least. You could argue the Cleveland Browns job is weirdly the best job available. Jets is still pretty good as well with Sam Darnold. But the Broncos job is a good job. John Elway wants to win. He's going to bring you the pieces that can help you win. They're a recent winner. It's a dip the last couple of years off of a poor play at quarterback, but the cupboard's not bare there in Denver. And he wanted that job, by all reports. Didn't get it. So he didn't get the job you want, and that's also bringing him close to his granddaughter. There are reports there that would make him close to his family in Denver. He's not from the area, of course, from Scranton, Pennsylvania, but granddaughter out there, and not only is it a semi-attractive job out of what's available, but would bring him closer to family. So he wanted that job. Mike Munchak would have taken the Broncos job if offered, for sure. Would have been a quality job with a good owner, quality ownership that wants to win, a smart mind leading up the football operations, and his family nearby. So it's all positive for him. Didn't get it though. So now that leads to Mike Munchak back with the Steelers. And that's wonderful news for Pittsburgh. Keeping Mike Munchak might actually be the best thing to happen to the Pittsburgh Steelers this offseason. If they don't lose Mike Munchak and he's back one more year, that's positive news. Now, one other interesting thing, though, before I close the chapter here on this little mic drop shorty off Pittsburgh Steelers offseason news, or news that wasn't, I guess, because you're not so much change. I've done shows on change. This might not be change, but could actually be good news. I'm not losing Mike Munchak. Is a way out for all of you. All of you Mike Tomlin haters, I've been telling you for years that you're being unfair to him in historical contacts, and they let Bill Cowher hang around for all those years while they were missing the playoffs. They let Chuck Noll flounder for a decade plus. And the Steelers franchise just doesn't fire coaches. They just don't. So it was almost immaterial, and it was pointless to have those Tomlin debates. But I absolutely agree there's room for criticism. He's underachieved with all this talent. This was a miserable year. His clock management, his in-game decisions, all of those have been suspect and been in question, and he's been criticized for the last few years especially. And a championship was 10 years ago, even though there was one. He won a Super Bowl, but it was 10 years ago. He's been to 2, but that still was almost a decade ago. Last year, 13 wins, winning recent divisions, but this year, off a disappointing season. And every now and then, you do need to kind of change the line, change things up. Very rare do you see a Bill Belichick run, and unless you have the most success of any head coach in league history, you're usually not going to be around in one place for that long period of time. I mean, just look at the history of the league even. Tony Dungy, tons of success for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Led them to the best seasons in franchise history, but they couldn't get over the hump. They couldn't win a Super Bowl title with Warren Sapp and John Lynch and that late 90s group in Tampa Bay. So it eventually took a new head coach and John Gruden coming over there and John Gruden leading them to a Super Bowl championship with mostly Tony Dungy's players. Tony Dungy winning a Super Bowl with the Colts after so much time in Tampa. So it took him going to a new place to win that championship. Jim Caldwell leading Tony Dungy's group to another Super Bowl appearance with the Colts. Sometimes a new coach can have success. Mike Tomlin able to win a championship soon after Bill Cowher. A lot of his players for that Super Bowl title. Doesn't take away in any way, because you're going to pick at that. It doesn't take away still being a head coach and having to do the job. It still gives credit to Mike Tomlin, Tony Dungy, and John Gruden. But a new coach, a new voice sometimes can help a team get over the hump and have more success with talent that maybe was underachieved in recent years prior to that. But look at the one example I gave. Tony Dungy, Tampa Bay, all those years, underachieved or didn't underachieve, but they didn't win a championship. They didn't get over the hump with him. He's gone. John Gruden comes in, wins that Super Bowl. John Gruden got there, though, off a trade. John Gruden had success with the Oakland Raiders, built them back up to glory, the end of Tim Brown's career and Jerry Rice's little brief period with the Raiders towards the end of his run in the NFL. John Gruden, MVP. They got to a Super Bowl with Bill Callahan as head coach, and it was all John Gruden's players, but Bill Callahan led them to the Super Bowl, losing to John Gruden. A little unique situation there, back to my youth in that Super Bowl. But John Gruden got to Tampa off a trade. John Gruden now wanted to go to Tampa, though. He wanted to be down there and wanted to do that with the Buccaneers. It was a destination that he wanted to be in, so it's a little different than here with Tomlin. But this brings up an interesting proposition. Andrew Filipponi with The Fan, one of them, your colleague here in Pittsburgh media who brought this up, but many others have also brought this up. Pro Football Talk actually mentioned this. In terms of if you really want to move on from Mike Tomlin, and again, this is very unlikely to happen, and Tomlin won't be fired, so we all know that whether you want it or not, he's not going to be fired. The Steelers don't fire head coaches. The Rooney family, they don't fire head coaches. They give long rope to fix things. They did it with Bill Cowher. Why not Tomlin? But if you really want to move on, you don't want to have to fire a head coach. You don't want to have to be unreasonable in that way because of his recent success as well as the failures. And they don't want to be a franchise that's firing a head coach, then okay. Trade him. That's an option. Trade Mike Tomlin. And it brings up Mike Munchak again. Take Mike Munchak from offensive line coach or assistant head coach, however they're going to do this, because it seems like he's going to stay, and promote him to head coach, give him that head coaching opportunity that he wasn't able to get this offseason, wasn't able to get a season ago in that offseason, when it appears he's ready and coveted and many teams have interest. He's going to get that eventually. So trade Mike Tomlin to another team. Allow him to be a head coach with another team. And promote Mike Munchak to your head coach, to be your head coach. That's a possibility. Now, it won't happen. When I say a possibility, it's something that is more likely than Tomlin ever to be fired, because Tomlin won't be fired in the Steelers franchise. They don't fire head coaches. This is still incredibly unlikely, but a very interesting proposition is promoting Mike Munchak, letting him be your head coach if he's going to stay with the Pittsburgh Steelers, and trading Mike Tomlin. Trade Tomlin, promote Mike Munchak. That's, again, not going to happen, but it makes you wonder. That's a way out. That's a way out for the Rooney family. That's a way where you don't have to fire a head coach that won a championship for you and is going to be in your Hall of Fame and Ring of Honor or whatever you want to call it eventually. That's a way out for you. You don't have to fire Mike Tomlin, but you can still move on from him. You can still have a new era of Pittsburgh Steelers football that maybe they finally need. And you can still celebrate him and respect him. Fans don't do this, but you still can. By trading Mike Tomlin, letting him move on. Maybe it'll even be best for him. Maybe he'll be able to win with somewhere else, because that sometimes has happened. Maybe his voice is wearing thin, and maybe they do need a new voice in there. And if that's the case, trade Mike Tomlin and promote Mike Munchak. You don't need to have your coaching search that now you'll be behind the eight ball. You have one right there that everybody else wants, that others have interviewed, that others have shown interest in. You got the guy already there who's going to be back, and that's Mike Munchak. Trade Tomlin, promote Munchak. That's another option for your offseason of change, since you don't want to fire Keith Butler. You don't want to bring in Greg Williams that I detailed on a past show when those are options. Then another one is, hey, trade Mike Tomlin, promote Munchak. There you go. That's another piece of prominent change. Now, I digress because they're not going to do it, but is interesting. It's an interesting option that's out there, and there's pedigree for this. There's precedent for this. It's happened in sports history and in NFL history in particular of coaches being traded. It can happen. Trade Tomlin, promote Munchak. There's an option for you. That's a compromise way out to move on and have real big change that even Tomlin's called for, that so far has just been minor change, for a new era of Pittsburgh football. You also keep my Munchak that I just detailed earlier in the show on why you need him and how that's maybe the best part of their offseason if they do keep Mike Munchak. Trade Tomlin, promote Munchak. Putting it out there in the universe. And this has been another edition of Mic Drop here on Pittsburgh Sports Live, where I put my hot takes out in the universe and you consume them, you like them, you hate them, but either way, you engage, or at least that's what we want here with Pittsburgh Sports Live. I want to ask you to click subscribe. Click on the subscribe button there. When you're at this video, you're already watching, so it's very simple for you. Click on the subscribe channel. Click on the subscribe button to get access to our channel, and then notifications when we do shows like this, right to you. Don't have to worry about any of our social media promotions. It'll be right there on the YouTube channel. So subscribe to us on YouTube. Follow us on Twitter at PGH Sports Live on Twitter. Make sure always to check out our overall family, Pittsburgh Sports Now, Pittsburgh Hockey Now. Haven't used this graphic yet, but it's always in our little board here at the studio. So there it is, Pittsburgh Sports Now, Pittsburgh Hockey Now for Dan Kongerski's outlet and his site. It's still Penguin season. They're the team here in Pittsburgh that's actually in season. While the Steelers drama hits the headlines, the Penguins are in season. And really winning a lot recently, turning things around, it appears. Matt Murray, some shutouts. Remember when you guys wanted him traded as well? Talk about a trade? Bringing up Jimmy Howard. Well, that's fixed. He can still be the goalie of the future there. And Crosby and company really turning it on now. Crosby playing like you always would expect. I'm getting big wins now. They're going to be a playoff team. All that talent. They're always a cup favorite. Pittsburgh Hockey Now. Even Brian Russ is getting it done. Penguin Jesus really watching out for him. Pittsburgh Soccer Now, and our new outlet here where this content can live in post form, SteelersNow.com. Subscribe to us on YouTube. Find these shows, all of our content, our gold quality content also online, pghsportslive.com. For even PSL has its own website. We're all over the websites, pghsportslive.com. Mike Munchak likely to stay with Steelers. Great news. That might be the best news the Steelers have all offseason. Another one could be promoting him to head coach and trading Mike Tomlin. Trade Tomlin. Do a John Gruden Raiders thing here with the Buccaneers. John Gruden was traded from the Raiders to the Buccaneers. Bill Callahan was promoted to head coach. Similar thing could happen. Wouldn't have to worry about being behind the eight ball because the guy that everybody else wanted or at least were interested in, Steelers already have, and are likely going to be back with Mike Munchak. So Mike Munchak returning. But if you want to make it for another option there, trade Tomlin, promote Munchak. That's it for me, though. Another episode here of Mic Drop on Pittsburgh Sports Live. And keep on watching and listening. More of you are doing it these days, so we like it. We like to bring in your comments. Feel free to comment on the video. Feel free to tell me how much of an idiot I am or how much of a genius I am. Either way, we might respond. And just keep saying it in your sleep. It's not going to happen. I understand it's not going to happen and unlikely. I understand it's just as unlikely as what you guys thought of firing Mike Tomlin. But just say it to yourself as you're dozing off tonight and just dream of this possibility because it's happened in NFL history before and it can happen again. Mike Munchak likely to return. Doesn't want the Dolphins job, doesn't get the Broncos job. He's going to be back. Great news. You want a new era? You want change? You're not going to fire Keith Butler when that's an obvious decision? Okay. Trade Tomlin, promote Munchak. Trade Tomlin, promote Munchak. Say it with me here. Trade Tomlin, promote Munchak. Trade Tomlin, promote Munchak. Trade Tomlin, promote Munchak. Trade Tomlin, promote Munchak.